Chapter 9: The Gendered Workplace. Most societies divide tasks, relying heavily on gender to do so. Even more important, the cross-cultural division does not mean the same labor is divided the same way, and what is valued differs across cultures. The explicitness of the division of labor in the United States is fairly new, since the 1950s. What has changed in American society since the 1950s is the increase in women in all areas of the working world. Still, society maintains traditional expectations about men as the breadwinners. This expectation persists even as we see that men are unhappy in their occupations, and especially uncomfortable with the demands of choosing the job over family. Women, at the same time, must learn to balance the masculine expectations of the workplace with expectations of them as women. Although social and economic changes dictate an increasing presence of women in the workplace, many people struggle to limit their access through various forms of discrimination, including paying women less. The wage gap is one of the principal forms of discrimination that women experience and one of the factors that helps to perpetuate social inequality because it has existed throughout much of Western history as well as across all age groups. Little girls receive smaller allowances than little boys. Social factors impact the pay differences, such as education and having children, which are also based on gender bias. Another issue of concern is the segregation of men and women into different occupations or jobs, all determined by traditional beliefs about men and women and what jobs suit such stereotyped behaviors. This segregation is so pervasive that it appears to be natural, starting from adolescent jobs up into careers. What often accompanies segregation is lower pay and prestige for female-dominated occupations. These were often originally male-dominated jobs, but as women entered the field, the pay and prestige decreased. Women, like minorities, often experience the glass ceiling effect, which is an extreme form of gender segregation because it limits women's access to upper management, regardless of the ambitions of women and men. Factors that do influence women's access are limited family-friendly policies and traditional policies for performance reviews. Tokens are a concern for women because these women are representative of a group, such as females, and not seen as individuals. As a result, they are not often respected, forcing them to work twice as hard to validate their positions. Still, when women do advance, it is perceived as disadvantaging men. Male tokens in female-dominated positions often have the opposite effect because the men move up the occupational ladder at a faster rate. Finally, sexual harassment is a common way men discriminate against women in the workplace and ultimately resist gender equality at work. It is an ever-increasing social problem as the ability to make claims about sexual harassment becomes more accessible. There are different forms of harassment, some blatant through threats, such as quid pro quo, and others more indirect through the creation of a hostile environment. All are about maintaining male power in the workplace and potentially getting women to leave. Present-day determinations of sexual harassment are based on the victim's perceptions and not the intent of the harasser. Changing workplace inequality begins with policy implementation, including compliance with existing laws. Another approach involves the implementation of comparable worth programs that base pay on the value of the job. In addition, hiring and promotion practices that reflect greater diversity, including the elimination of the mommy track, should be implemented. What must be considered is an attempt to help people balance family and work, such as enacting family-friendly policies. It is important to recognize that these issues are parents' issues, not just women's issues. Such changes will dramatically alter women's positions in the workplace. When completing this chapter, you should be able to accomplish the following learning objectives. 1. To understand the ways in which the labor force and the wage gap have changed and the ways they have remained the same in the past 150 years. 2. To understand the place of the United States in workplace gender discrimination. 3. To be able to name both overt and subtle forms of sexism in the workplace. 4. To understand how sex segregation and wage differentials are connected. 5. To be able to list some of the possible ways that gender discrimination in the workplace can be redressed and reversed.